You erased me from the family, I erased you from the budget.
I'm 42 years old and thought I'd experienced some terrible days in my life. But absolutely nothing could have prepared me for having my entire existence terminated over a medium-rare ribeye steak at Romano's Italian Steakhouse. You know the type of establishment I'm talking about. Cloth napkins that probably cost more than most people's monthly car payments. Breadsticks served with the kind of pretentious olive oil that has its own origin story. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was about to get emotionally destroyed in the same restaurant where we'd celebrated our 10th anniversary, Sophie's 8th grade graduation, and Nicole's promotion to regional manager of whatever multi-level marketing scheme she was pretending counted as legitimate employment that particular month. We were seated in one of those corner booths that wealthy people prefer because it creates the illusion of privacy while simultaneously allowing everyone to observe how successful they believe themselves to be. The lighting had that dim, romantic quality that makes everyone appear 10 years younger and conceals the fact that you're essentially dining in an upscale cave with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Nicole was dressed in her serious conversation outfit, that black dress that cost more than my first automobile, paired with those shoes that resembled medieval torture devices but apparently made her feel powerful and in control. Sophie, my 16-year-old daughter who I used to believe hung the moon and stars, was completely absorbed in her iPhone like it had been surgically attached to her hand, those acrylic nails clicking against the screen with the rhythm of a tiny, incredibly annoying percussion performance. I should have recognized something was wrong when Nicole ordered the most expensive steak on the menu without even glancing at the price tag. Usually she at least pretended to care about our finances, doing that performative routine where she'd squint at the menu and comment about how something seemed a bit expensive before ordering it anyway. But tonight, nothing. She ordered that $48 ribeye like she was ordering a value meal at McDonald's. Red flag number 1, people. The waiter, this young guy named Tyler, who was probably working his way through community college and definitely didn't get compensated enough to witness what was about to happen, brought out our entrees with the kind of flourish that suggested he'd been practicing his technique in front of a mirror. He announced each dish like he was introducing royalty at a formal ceremony. Nicole picked up her knife and fork with the precision of a surgeon preparing for a complicated operation, cut into that steak like she was dissecting something in a biology laboratory, and without even looking up at me said, "We've agreed. You're no longer part of the family." Just like that. No preamble, no honey, we need to talk warning, no emergency sirens or broadcast alerts. Just straight to the devastating point like she was informing me we were out of milk or that she'd picked up my dry cleaning from the shop down the street. Don't come home anymore. Don't come to any gatherings. She placed a piece of steak into her mouth and chewed thoughtfully, like she'd just made a casual observation about the weather instead of dropping a nuclear weapon directly into my existence. I'm not going to lie. My first instinct was to laugh, not because anything was remotely funny, but because my brain literally couldn't process what had just occurred. It was like that moment in a horror film when the protagonist realizes the threatening call is coming from inside the house, except instead of a serial butcher, it was my wife of 15 years informing me I'd been voted off the island like some reality television contestant. And the real kicker? The "we" she kept referencing. "We've agreed," she said. "Since when did my family become a democracy I wasn't invited to participate in? Was there a family meeting I missed? Did they send out an email notification? Was there a formal vote? Did they use one of those apps where everyone submits their opinion and the majority rules?" Sophie didn't even look up from her phone. She just nodded, like Nicole had asked if she wanted dessert instead of essentially telling me I'd been terminated from being a father and husband. That nod, man. That tiny little head movement that communicated, "Yeah, Mom's right, you're out," without even having the basic decency to make eye contact with me. That's when the reality hit me hard. This wasn't a spontaneous decision made in the heat of the moment. This was planned, calculated, strategically organized. They'd probably discussed it over morning lattes at Starbucks while I was at the office earning the money that paid for those expensive coffee drinks. For a solid 10 seconds, I just sat there with my fork hovering somewhere between my plate and my mouth, trying to determine if I was having a medical emergency or if this was actually happening in real life. The restaurant sounds around me seemed to amplify, the clinking of silverware, the pretentious laughter from the table near the bar where some guy was definitely lying about his golf handicap, The subtle jazz music that was supposed to be soothing, but now felt like a soundtrack to my personal apocalypse. But here's the thing about being an accountant for 20 years. You learn to maintain your composure when the numbers don't add up correctly. You learn to smile and nod when clients tell you they forgot to report that extra $50,000 in income. You develop this beautiful skill of appearing calm while your brain is performing backflips and calculating worst-case scenarios in real time. So I did what I do best. I set down my fork very deliberately, took a slow sip of water from that overpriced Pellegrino they charge $8 for, smiled like I'd just been informed I won the lottery, and said, "Thanks for confirming. I'll cancel all the automatic payments." The silence that followed was absolutely magnificent. You could have heard a pin drop in that noisy restaurant. Nicole's knife froze mid-cut, her eyes going wide like I'd just told her the steak was constructed from cardboard. Sophie's thumb actually stopped scrolling, and if you know teenagers, you know that's basically a medical miracle. Even Tyler, the waiter who was refilling water glasses at the adjacent table, did this subtle double take like he knew he'd just witnessed something absolutely legendary. Nicole blinked at me repeatedly, her mouth opening and closing like a confused goldfish. "What?" she managed to squeak out, her voice about 3 octaves higher than normal, but I was done. I was so incredibly beautifully done with all of it. I pulled out my wallet, the same wallet that had been funding their lifestyle for the past 15 years, and placed enough cash on the table to cover the bill plus a 30% tip. Because unlike some people, I still believe in taking care of folks who actually work for a living and provide genuine service. "Thanks for dinner," I said, standing up and straightening my tie. "Tyler, the chicken was excellent. You folks have a wonderful evening." And then I walked out of Romano's Italian steakhouse with my head held high, leaving behind a half-eaten chicken breast and the smoldering remains of what used to be my family unit. I sat in my car in the parking lot for exactly 3 minutes, just breathing deeply and watching the neon sign flicker outside the restaurant. Then I pulled out my phone and opened my banking application. By the time I pulled into my office parking garage 20 minutes later, I'd canceled the electric bill, the gas bill, the water bill, the internet service, the cable package, Nicole's gym membership at that fancy place with the eucalyptus-scented towels, Sophie's Spotify premium account, the car insurance on Nicole's BMW, and my personal favorite, the monthly subscription to that meal kit service Nicole never actually cooked, but loved to photograph for Instagram. At exactly 12:03 a.m., while I was sitting in my office chair eating leftover Chinese food and watching reruns of The Office, their perfect little world started going dark. No internet for Sophie's precious TikTok videos, no electricity for Nicole's curling iron, no hot water for those hour-long showers that wasted enough water to fill a swimming pool. Turns out when you kick out the family accountant, Netflix goes with him. So does Hulu, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, and every other streaming service they'd forgotten I was paying for each month. My phone started buzzing around 12:15 a.m. I looked at Nicole's name flashing on the screen, smiled, and set my phone face down on my desk. Then I took another bite of lo mein and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Absolute, unadulterated peace. Getting dumped by your wife at a fancy restaurant gives you considerable time to think about where everything went wrong, and more importantly, when you became so pathetically blind to the fact that you weren't in a marriage, but rather a never-ending subscription service that kept auto-renewing every month without your actual consent. I spent that first night after the dinner disaster sitting in my office, which had become more of a home to me than our actual 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house in the suburbs anyway, just running through the highlight reel of our 15-year marriage like some masochistic film student analyzing a really depressing independent movie. Nicole and I met at a corporate mixer in 2010, back when people still thought those events were productive instead of the awkward networking disasters they actually are. She was working as a receptionist at a dental office, and I was a junior accountant at a mid-size firm, wearing a suit that cost more than my rent and trying to pretend I knew what I was doing with my life. She had this laugh that could light up a room full of boring finance professionals talking about tax codes and quarterly projections. That laugh was what made me fall in love with her. Turns out that laugh was also her greatest acting performance, because I'd learned over the years that it came out strategically whenever she needed something, wanted something, or was about to spend money we didn't have on something we definitely didn't need. The first few years were actually pretty decent. We had a tiny apartment in a neighborhood that was up and coming, which is realtor code for kind of sketchy, but we promise it'll be nice eventually. We ate ramen for dinner more nights than I care to admit, binge watch Netflix on a television we bought off Craigslist for $60, and genuinely seemed to enjoy each other's company back then. Nicole would curl up next to me on our thrift store couch and talk about her dreams, opening her own business, traveling to Italy, maybe having a kid or two. I'd tell her about making partner at the firm someday, about how I'd take care of her, about how we'd build something real together. And here's where I really need to give myself credit for being the world's biggest idiot. I actually did it. I worked my butt off, pulled 70-hour weeks, survived on coffee and granola bars, and climbed that corporate ladder like it was my personal Mount Everest. By year 5, I'd made senior accountant. By year 8, I was pulling in 6 figures annually. By year 10, I'd made partner, and we'd moved into that picture-perfect suburban house with the manicured lawn and 2-car garage. Sophie was born in year 3, and watching Nicole hold our daughter for the first time made me think that maybe all those extra hours and missed dinners and sacrificed weekends were worth the sacrifice. But somewhere between for better and for worse, we'd taken a hard left turn into for ATM machine. Nicole had started her business ventures, and I use that term so loosely it barely qualifies as a term anymore. First, it was the boutique clothing line that lasted 6 months and cost me $15,000 in startup costs. Then it was the Essential Oils pyramid scheme that she swore wasn't a pyramid scheme, but definitely had a triangular business model. After that came the life coaching certification, the real estate license she never actually used, the Etsy shop that sold exactly 3 items, all purchased by her mother, and most recently some kind of wellness consulting operation that seemed to consist entirely of posting inspirational quotes on Instagram and drinking green smoothies at expensive cafes. Every single one of these ventures required capital. My capital. Every single one came with a PowerPoint presentation about investing in our future and believing in each other's dreams. And every single time, like a complete chump, I'd wire the money from our joint account and watch it evaporate faster than water in the desert. But here's what really got me. What kept me awake at night now that I was finally processing all of this. She never once said thank you. Not genuinely, anyway. It was always this performative gratitude, the kind you give when someone holds the door open for you. Thanks, babe, she'd say, barely looking up from her phone, like I just picked up milk from the grocery store instead of funding her latest fantasy business venture. And Sophie, my sweet baby girl who used to think I hung the moon and the stars, who used to draw me crayon pictures of us holding hands with Best Daddy written in backwards letters, who used to wait by the door when I came home from work and jump into my arms like I was a superhero. Somewhere around her 13th birthday, that little girl had been replaced by a teenager who'd learned every trick in her mother's playbook. Last year alone, and I'm not exaggerating here because I had the spreadsheets to prove it. I spent $28,000 on Sophie, private tutoring for classes she was failing because she spent more time on TikTok than studying. The essential spring break trip to Cancun with her friends that she absolutely needed, or she'd literally die of social embarrassment. $3,000. The new iPhone because her perfectly functional 6-month-old iPhone was so cringe, Dad, oh my God, $1,200. Designer clothes from brands I couldn't even pronounce. Another $5,000 easily. A car for her 16th birthday, not just any car, but a used Audi because everyone else has nice cars. $15,000. And you know what I got for all that investment? A nod at dinner while her mother kicked me out of the family. A nod like I was some employee getting downsized during corporate restructuring. Yeah, Mom's right. Dad's out. Can I get the Wi-Fi password for wherever we're going next? I sat there in my office chair at 2:30 in the morning, spinning slowly and staring at the ceiling tiles I'd memorized during countless late nights, and replayed that dinner conversation for probably the 100th time. We've agreed, Nicole had said. We've agreed. Like it was a business decision made by a board of directors, like our marriage and family was some kind of corporation where I'd been outvoted by the other shareholders. When exactly did that vote happen? Was it over breakfast while I was at the gym? Was it during one of their mother-daughter shopping trips that I'd funded? Was there a family group chat I wasn't included in where they'd been planning this corporate takeover for weeks? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that's exactly what had happened. I'd been strategically excluded from my own family, slowly and methodically pushed to the margins until I was nothing more than a walking, talking, checking account with legs. I wasn't Nicole's husband. I was her financial advisor who occasionally shared a bed with her. I wasn't Sophie's father. I was the guy who paid for stuff and occasionally said no. which made me the villain in her teenage drama production. By 2:30 a.m., I opened Excel, my old friend, my faithful companion, the only relationship in my life that had never let me down, and created a new workbook. I titled it The Henderson Family Financial Report, A Tragedy in Numbers. I started with the big expenses that had actually required conscious decisions and multiple zeros. The house, I put down $80,000 as a down payment in 2015, money I'd saved from bonuses and tax refunds, and basically never eating lunch anywhere that didn't have a dollar menu. I typed it in, $80,000. House down payment, Nicole, so we could live in the right neighborhood. The right neighborhood, by the way, was code for the place where all her friends lived, so she could keep up with the Joneses, or in this case, the Hendersons and Martinez family, and those insufferable people next door with the matching Range Rovers. Then came Sophie's private school tuition, $22,000 per year for 13 years, because apparently the perfectly good public school 3 blocks away wasn't good enough for our precious angel. I did the math. $286,000 in tuition alone. $286,000 so Sophie could attend a school with a pretentious Latin motto and a lacrosse team. Nicole's car, that gorgeous silver BMW X5 that she'd begged for because I need something safe for Sophie, $58,000. Plus another $12,000 in maintenance over the years because German engineering apparently means expensive as hell to fix when literally anything breaks. The family vacations, Disney World twice because apparently once wasn't enough magical memories, Hawaii for our 10th anniversary, where Nicole posted approximately 900 photos on Instagram. That ski trip to Colorado, where none of us actually knew how to ski, but Nicole insisted we needed to learn because everyone skis. The cruise to the Caribbean, where I got food poisoning and spent 3 days in our cabin while Nicole and Sophie enjoyed the all-inclusive buffets I was paying for. Altogether, probably $70,000 easy. I kept going, getting more detailed, more petty, more beautifully vindictive with each entry. Nicole's gym membership at that place, with the eucalyptus towels and kombucha on tap, $2,400 per year for 6 years. Her weekly nail appointments, $80 per session times 52 weeks times however many years. Her Botox appointments that she thought I didn't know about, $600 every 4 months like clockwork. By the time I finished at noon, it was a 17-page spreadsheet totaling just over $1.2 million. $1.2 million over 15 years of marriage. That number just sat there at the bottom of my spreadsheet, mocking me, showing me exactly how much it had cost to be treated like garbage by the people I'd loved most in the world. My phone was still buzzing with calls and texts that I ignored completely. At 2:17 p.m., Barbara's name flashed on my screen. Barbara, Nicole's mother, the woman I'd privately nicknamed Mother Debit Card, after the 15th time she'd called asking me to help with some emergency that always seemed to require exactly the amount of money she'd recently spent on a cruise or a new handbag. I let it ring 15 times before answering. Daniel Henderson, what in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ do you think you're doing to my daughter? She screeched at a pitch that probably violated several noise ordinances. Well, Barbara, I'm currently sitting in my office reviewing financial documents. How's your day going? Don't you sass me. Nicole called me in tears. Tears, Daniel. You've shut off all the utilities. Sophie can't even charge her phone. That does sound like a crisis. Perhaps Sophie could use this as an opportunity to read a book. I hear they don't require electricity. Very old school technology. This isn't funny. These are your responsibilities. How could you abandon your family? Interesting choice of words, Barbara. When your daughter told me I was no longer part of the family, was that her being responsible? Or is responsibility just another word for Daniel pays for everything and keeps his mouth shut? Silence. Beautiful, blessed silence. Since you're so concerned about Nicole and Sophie's well-being, maybe you could help out with the utility bills. I'm sure they'd appreciate it. It's called budgeting. You should try it sometime. Have a blessed day, Barbara. I hung up before she could respond, which felt so good I almost did a victory dance. At 4:32 p.m., Barbara struck back on Facebook with a post titled, When Family Forgets. The post was a masterpiece of manipulative, passive-aggressive writing. Sometimes people forget where they came from. They forget who loved them, who supported them. My heart is breaking today for my daughter and granddaughter who are suffering because someone decided that money is more important than love. To my son-in-law, I pray that you remember what truly matters. God sees everything. The post filled up with sympathy comments from Barbara's church friends and Nicole's wine night crew. Then Nicole's Aunt Helen showed up. Barbara, didn't Daniel pay for Nicole's business degree, the house, and Sophie's school? Just asking for a friend. The comments section erupted. I screenshot everything and called my lawyer friend Ryan. I saw Barbara's Facebook post. That woman has the self-awareness of a goldfish. He laughed when he answered. I gave him the abbreviated version. Ryan stayed quiet through the whole thing, then whistled low. That's ice cold. Here's what we're going to do. Document everything, stop engaging completely, and explore your legal options. We talked for 20 minutes about strategy. By the time I hung up, I felt hope. Not hope for reconciliation, but hope that maybe I'd come out of this okay. That night at 11:43 p.m., I drafted an email. Subject line, outstanding balances, Henderson family account, action required. Dear Nicole, Sophie, and Barbara, this correspondence serves as formal notification regarding outstanding financial obligations related to Henderson family account hash, HF 2025 1026001. Per our recent discussion on October 25th, 2025 at Romano's Italian Steakhouse, it was mutually agreed that I would no longer be considered part of the family unit. In light of this restructuring, all financial support will be discontinued effective immediately. Upon comprehensive review of account history spanning 2010 to 2025, significant financial discrepancies exist. You have 30 calendar days to respond with detailed accounting of shared financial assets. Failure to respond will result in this matter being forwarded to legal counsel. Respectfully, Daniel Henderson, CPA. I clicked send at 11:58 p.m. The responses came fast. Nicole at 12:03 a.m. WTF, is this Daniel? Are you threatening us? I'm calling my lawyer. Sophie at 12:07 a.m. Dad, this is so extra. Mom said you could come back if you apologize. Just say sorry. Barbara at 12:09 a.m. Daniel, I've prayed for you tonight. What you're doing is sinful. The devil is working through you. I almost replied to Barbara that actually TurboTax was working through me, but Ryan's voice echoed in my head. Stay professional, don't engage. I closed my email and turned off my phone. The next morning, Ryan called. Daniel, did you authorize a $50,000 withdrawal from your joint savings on March 15th, 2024? What? No. 50 grand? I'd remember that. Nicole did it, and she forged your signature. Not even a good forgery. I compared it to your actual signature, and it's not even close. Jesus Christ, what did she use it for? Bank notation says home renovations. Remember any? The kitchen. She said it cost around $30,000. I agreed to that. Kitchen only cost $28,000 according to the contractor's invoice. So, $50,000 withdrawn, $28,000 spent, and $22,000 just gone. Gone where? Working on that, but Daniel, she forged your signature. That's fraud, actual prosecutable fraud. Combined with your email documenting everything, we've got grounds for asset freezes, emergency financial restraining orders, everything. File it, file everything. I want every account frozen. Music to my ears. By dinner tonight, the only thing running in that house will be the ceiling fan. Ryan called back later. Found another irregularity. Remember Nicole's Aunt Dorothy, who passed away 2 years ago? Yeah, Nicole said she left her about $10,000. The inheritance was actually $35,000. And it wasn't left to Nicole. It was left to both of you jointly. Nicole forged your signature on that check too and deposited it in a personal account. That account's now empty. File it immediately. I want every fraudulent transaction documented. By 5 p.m., Ryan had filed everything. By 6, it was approved. By 7, every account with Nicole's name was locked down. At 8:15 p.m., my apartment buzzer went crazy. Nicole's voice came through. Daniel, I need to talk to you. Please, it's important. I buzzed her up. She arrived looking destroyed, mascara streaking down her face, hair in a messy ponytail, wearing yoga pants and what looked like my old college sweatshirt. The lights are out, she said, tears streaming. The power's completely out. Sophie's terrified, sitting in the dark with her phone flashlight. Daniel, your daughter is scared. So turn the power back on. I can't. You canceled everything. The electric company said we need to pay $1,500. I don't have $1,500 just lying around. I laughed. You don't have $1,500? Nicole, you withdrew $50,000 from our savings 8 months ago. Where exactly did that money go? Her face went pale. That was for the kitchen. The kitchen cost $28,000. I've got the contractor's invoice right here. So where's the other 22,000? Silence. So let me get this straight. You forged my signature, stole $50,000, spent it on who knows what, kicked me out of the family over dinner, and now you're here because the consequences are inconvenient? Daniel, please, think of Sophie. She didn't do anything wrong. She's just a kid. Sophie had the chance to not be in this situation when you decided to kick me out. She nodded, remember? She could have called me any time in the past 2 days. She could have sent a text that wasn't demanding I turn the Wi-Fi back on, but she didn't. I handed her a manila folder. This is a formal demand for reimbursement. Every dollar I've spent over 15 years that benefited you directly, every forged signature, every unauthorized withdrawal. You've got 30 days to respond, and if you don't, my lawyer files a formal fraud complaint with the district attorney. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. You made it clear I'm not part of the family anymore. Fine. But right now, Nicole, I'm your creditor. You've got 29 days and 23 hours to figure out how to respond. Daniel, wait. The candlelight ambiance you wanted finally arrived. You should enjoy it. I hear it's very romantic. I closed the door and stood there listening to her footsteps retreat down the hallway. Then I picked up my cold burrito and took a bite. Tasted better than any meal I'd had in years. The next morning, Barbara posted again on Facebook, a long dramatic essay about how I'd abandoned my family, cut off utilities, frozen bank accounts, threatened legal action over money. The post got 43 likes in under an hour. Then Aunt Helen appeared. Barbara, you mean the family that told him not to come home? That family? The comments exploded with questions. People who'd been posting sympathy suddenly started asking for clarification. Over the next 2 weeks, everything collapsed for Nicole. The neighborhood found out when police showed up to ask questions about forged signatures. Neighbors stopped making eye contact. The book club quietly uninvited her. The PTA group chat went silent. Nicole called me once, her voice small and defeated. Please, think of Sophie. I am, I replied. She'll finally learn that money doesn't grow on guilt. I hung up and blocked her number. Then I blocked Barbara's number, Sophie's number, and blocked them all on every social media platform. Within 2 weeks, the house sold. The proceeds, after paying off the mortgage I'd been covering for 15 years, were legally wired to my account per the court's order. Sophie sent me one final text before I blocked her. You won. I stared at that message for a long time. Finally, I typed back, no, I just unsubscribed. Then I blocked her and deleted our entire text history. Every can I have money for message, every guilt trip, every conversation that had treated me like a bank instead of a parent. Gone. 3 weeks after the court finalized everything, Ryan showed up at my apartment with coffee and a huge smile. It's done. Nicole's accounts are drained. House proceeds are yours. All fraudulent charges are legally hers to repay. And the judge threw in a restraining order after Barbara showed up drunk to the courthouse trying to serve you with God's judgment. I laughed so hard I nearly choked. She didn't. Security escorted her out. It was magnificent. I'd moved into a smaller downtown apartment the week before. 1 bedroom, decent kitchen, huge windows that let in actual sunlight. No more dark corners where resentment could hide. No more walking on eggshells. No more funding other people's fantasies while neglecting my own reality. What are you going to do now? Ryan asked. Travel, date, maybe join a bowling league. Probably start that YouTube channel. How to Get Divorced Without Crying, featuring spreadsheets and spite. Ryan nearly spit out his coffee. I'd subscribe to that. That night I microwaved leftover lasagna from the good Italian place down the street and sat down with my laptop. I opened my old payment records, the spreadsheets that had documented 15 years of financial misuse disguised as marriage, and stared at them for a long moment. Then I hit delete. Watching them vanish felt better than any therapy session ever could. Before bed, I texted Ryan. They said I was out of the family. Thanks for making it official. His response came immediately. Pleasure doing business with you. Drinks next week. Peace isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's just a man eating lasagna in silence, drinking a beer in a sunlit apartment, surrounded by nothing but his own choices and absolutely zero regrets. No more being taken for granted. No more funding endless ventures that went nowhere. No more being treated like an ATM with legs. For the first time in 15 years, I was finally home.